Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello and welcome back to the Christmas week episode of Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And that's right, it is just days before Christmas, 2021. And what better way to celebrate the holiday cheer than doing a Joe on Joe Illustrated reviewing G.I. Joe number 109, where 7 Joe members get murdered. That's... I found myself laughing earlier this week when I was thinking about the show, and I said, what are we doing for Christmas? Oh, that's bad timing. G.I. Joe 109, the week of Christmas. Well, you know what? We're going to do it, because what better gift for our Joe fans and Joe listeners, Joe on Joe listeners, than the gift of realism. As we've seen in the letter pages in recent issues, that's what the kids were clamoring for. They wanted realism. Well, this is the issue they got realism. G.I. Joe 109, A Real American Hero. If you're new to the show, to the Joe on Joe, this is the podcast where we go over every single issue of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, page by page, panel by panel, in excruciating detail. And we also have done this for the cartoons, starting with the Sunbow stuff, going all the way through the DIC stuff, and G.I. Joe Extreme, and we'll be getting back to the cartoons sometime in the near future. But until then, we're plowing through our G.I. Joe Real American Heroes, and this is the Christmas episode. Ta-da! So, if you're looking for Christmas cheer, I know who probably has a ton of Christmas cheer. Our great sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. I'm sure they do. Give them a listen.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
And while you are downloading the Movies and a Meal podcast, I need you to go to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I want you to say hello to me over at Joe on Joe Pod. That is my handle. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Or you can support the show. Go to patreon.com/joeandjoepod and sign up and help keep the show, keep the body count rising and climbing, rather, as the cover of this week's G.I. Joe can attest to. So before we get to the bloodshed for Christmas,
you were saying,
we're going to take a look at other comic books that were on the shelf the same month as G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 109. So this is this was cover dated. It's got the February of 1991 removal date on the front cover. So we're looking over at DC, and there were a bunch of books here that were kind of a lot of fun. And the first one that jumps out at me is not just because it starts with the word action, so it's at the top of the alphabet, but it was a pretty important book for a long time. Action Comics number 662. And this is the issue where Clark Kent reveals to Lois Lane that he is actually Superman. Fantastic cover. It's Lois's reaction. She's holding Clark's glasses, and in the reflection of the glasses, you see his hands opening up a shirt, revealing the Superman logo. It's an absolute great issue. I really, really love it. It collector-wise, it's weird. This is one of those books because there's not a lot of Superman books that are really, that heat up the market. You know what I mean? Especially modern era. Even the Death of stuff is so overprinted that it's really not worth more than 10, 20 bucks. This was one that was for a long time hovered up there. It would always be about 10 bucks, and some of the back, like it hovered. It always teased with being expensive. Not expensive, but a little more valuable than your run of the mill Supermans. And it never really popped. And I always wish that this book just would be appreciated more because it is the modern era Clark revealed to Lois, even going to this day where, with Rebirth kind of putting all this stuff back into continuity. I believe this is all continuity. This is when Clark reveals to Lois. I think that's really key. So, not that it matters what the aftermarket value is, certainly, but this this is one of those books that really always tingles in the back of my head of like, why isn't this a little more sought after? Because it's also really well done too. Action 662, where Clark reveals he's Superman. So good. All right. Oh, Green Lantern number 9, A Guy in His Gnort or Nort, however you choose to pronounce it. It was a 3-issue, a little like mini story within. It's not a mini series. It's actually just in the pages of Green Lantern. But like this was the Green Lantern book when it was featuring John and Hal and Guy, so they would rotate kind of story arcs. And this was Guy Gardner rather teamed up with Nort the dog, Green Lantern. I think I go with Nort, but when I was a kid, I always pronounced it Gnort. And either way, it's hilarious. And I love Nort the dog and Guy together was absolutely hilarious. So that's always fun. What else do we have going on here? Robin's continuing his solo adventure over in Robin number 2. Wow, not a ton else this month, to be honest. We're looking at this, the New God series is close to being wrapped up. This is that, the Paris Cullens originally was on it. That's that era series, that like post Kirby. Yeah, everything else looks kind of okay. Yeah, I mean nothing really screams out at me. This is kind of a run of the mill decent month for DC. Legion is telling the story of Venado Bay. If you're a Legion fan and you know what that means, that was they teased it for the first year of the title. It's the big fallout between Shrinking Violet and Cosmic Boy. So they're actually telling that story. So that's a cool cover. It's like a war-torn cover with Brainiac on the cover. And yeah, it's kind of okay. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you just got to move on.
You were saying?
I was saying, Stalker. I was. And now we're looking at Marvel Comics. And Marvel Comics, they're the publishers, if you're unfamiliar, of a character called Spider-Man. If you haven't seen Spider-Man, I Can't Find My Way Home. There's certainly no spoilers here, but don't wait. Oh, it's so good. The Mrs. Toiletile and I, we saw it opening day, and unequivocally awesome. Just start to finish, really, really a lot of fun, especially if you've seen the other Spider-Man movies, and you have any kind of appreciation for the history of the character in cinema, fashion. It's great. Really great. A lot of really earned emotional moments in it, good and bad, and lots of applause moments throughout the movie. Great. Just absolutely wonderful. So everyone should go out and see, I believe it's Spider-Man, I'm Lost and Can't Find My Way Home. I believe that's the film. You guys absolutely should go check that out. It's really, 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 really enjoyable. So speaking of him, it's 344. It's Cardiac and Rhino, and I believe Amazing Spider-Man rather, and I believe this is the first appearance of Cletus Cassidy. So it's not the first Carnage, but I believe this is where they first introduce the serial killer in the jail cell. If memory is serving me well, and I believe it is, 344. And that's the guy who would become Carnage. So that's a book to look out for, on the back issue market. Of course, G.I. Joe 109 is there with all of its Snake Eyes deception on the cover. We know Snake Eyes is not even in this. He's talked about it. But the Hulk 378 is the Hulk fighting Santa Claus, which is great. And he's carrying a crowbar, which should give you a clue. I believe that is the Wrecker in the Santa Claus outfit. I know it's somebody, but I believe it's the Wrecker, if memory serves. And that's fun. I've seen this a couple times. I think once they did like the Rhino dressed as Santa, and maybe Spider-Man was fighting him. That sounds really familiar to me. So it's I think the Punisher has hunted down people in Santa outfits. It's always pretty fun. So yeah, Incredible Hulk 378. And this would have been on the stands in like October of 1990. So that's good and timely, and would have probably sold through pretty well. And the next month as Christmas was heading up there. Speaking of Christmas, well, here's an important book. Important not because it's great, not because it's the kind of like wonderful literature that you want to sit and read over and over again, but it is an important book. I'd be foolish to make any more fun of it. It's New Mutants number 98. It's the first appearance of Deadpool, the Merc with the Mouth. What else is there to say about Deadpool? It's Deadpool, no, I like the Deadpool movies actually, but I'm not a massive fan of the character in the comics. He's certainly had some fun runs and stuff, but I feel like he breaks a lot of the books that he's in because he's played so comedically. But hey, who might argue with success? He's one of the most popular characters, so I'm probably a dope. But New Mutants 98 is out. That's certainly a great book to have in your collection. Although it's wild, the market for it, even though Deadpool, he's still as popular as ever, there are so many copies of this book in existence that while, like a slabbed, really, really clean copy, if you want to waste your money on a slab book like that, is still thousands and thousands of dollars. But like a nice, raw, really clean raw copy is really only $300 to $400, somewhere in that range. Which is wild because at the height of the Deadpool mania, that was $700-800, if not $1,000 at times. We were selling it at the store, and now really the market is cooled. So if you are out there and you're looking for, you don't have a copy of Deadpool 98, and I mean this genuinely, now is not a terrible time. Although, now is a seller's, it's a seller's market right now anyway. So now's not a great time in general. Unless you can find some deals, because everything's a little inflated in my opinion. But as that goes, I think New Mutant 98s are, I don't think they're going to lose a lot more value than where they're at now. I think they only have the potential to go up, especially when they do incorporate Deadpool into the MCU, whether it's Ryan Reynolds still or whoever. Probably would be Ryan. I can't imagine they would change it. He's still young enough to play him for a long time. That'll probably be when that book pops again, once they actually figure out how they're going to incorporate it into the MCU proper. But now is as low as a market I've seen on that book is where I'm coming from. So Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., issue number 20. This is the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, and it ran like 28 issues or something. Like it's not bad. It is not a fancy book. It's not a flashy book. Jackson Geist did the penciling, which is really great. D.G. Chichester was the writer. He was writing, or he would soon be writing Daredevil, if he wasn't writing it yet. It's not a bad series. It's really overlooked. It's kind of pedestrian, I'd say, but in general, it's a fun series. I was able to put together a collection years and years ago for super cheap, And I kind of liked it. Like, it's not bad. It's good, like Spycraft. It's very much in the vein, not just because it's like spies and stuff, of a book like Suicide Squad or Checkmate over at DC. You know, just kind of a workman, fun adventure about people that in the superhero world that aren't super flashy, but, you know, have solid, and they're well told tales. So I dig that. I do enjoy that run of Nick Fury. Let's see. Adam Warlock is back in Silver Surfer 46. This is setting up the whole Infinity Gauntlet stuff. Remember a couple issues ago was the big Gauntlet appearance or Thanos appearance where he's, you know, searching for the Gauntlet. And so now they bring back Adam Warlock. He had probably been dead for 2 or 3 times earlier. What else? Oh, Will Portacio. He's over on X Factor right now. This might have been his first issue, actually. He drew X-Men for maybe 8 issues or something like that, maybe 10 issues. And I really I liked his time on it. And this is before before he went over to I believe this is his first one. Before he goes over to Image. He did a handful of issues on X Factor, and it was fun. And they fought some techno ninjas or something like techno. Or it was Bobby Drake's girlfriend at the time. She was mixed up with the Yakuza, something like that. I don't exactly remember what the story was, but he drew a handful of issues, and it was enjoyable. I liked it. I also like that series, so you know I'm a sucker for it in general. And I think that's where we're at with Marvel Comics. I think those are all the real big books. One quick more scan here. Yeah, I mean, you know, Zorro, issue number 3.
You were saying?
So now we're going to go over to see what movies were in the theaters the month that this was on the stand. So this was actually October of 1990, as I said earlier. And we've got on October the 5th, a bunch of movies. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, Marked for Death, 1990, with Steven Seagal. You know, this is the Steven Seagal and Keith David and oh no, I forget. This isn't. Sorry, I was thinking of the female lead, and Danny Trejo shows up in this. Marked for Death. It's one of the more palatable Steven Seagal movies. You know, he's a joke and a clown, but you know, he made a couple fun films, and this is one of them for sure. I'm not gonna knock that. But by far the biggest movie historically, the really freaking greatest movie that came out this week was Miller's Crossing. By the Coen brothers. If you haven't revisited Miller's Crossing in a few years, do yourself a favor. Just sit down. We talked about Goodfellas relatively recently because Goodfellas just last month? Yeah, it was. So you got Goodfellas in September, and then next month you get Miller's Crossing. Those are both absolute legends of the crime genre. Miller's Crossing is really, really great. Gabriel Byrne, John Turturro, John Polito, Albert Finney, Steve Buscemi, Marcia Gay Harden. It's it's great, and not just because that wonderful scene in the forest, that tragic, just heartbreaking scene in the forest, but it's really, really great. So now on October 12th, we have Mr. Destiny with Jim Belushi, and this is what is this, like It's a Wonderful Life? Isn't this I thought this was about a baseball player. So it's like a remake of Mr. Wonderful Life. For some reason, I thought that maybe I'm thinking of Mr. 3000 because we were talking about that recently. Anyway, Mr. Destiny with Jim Belushi. Memphis Belle. I've seen this. This is with Eric Stoltz and Harry Connick Jr., Matthew Modine. About the Memphis Belle is the plane. Isn't the plane that It's about the 25th and last mission of one of the B-17 flying bombers based in England in World War II. I remember this being an entertaining movie. You know, pretty well done. I do not remember the details of it, but I do remember enjoying. Oh, Tate Donovan's in it. D.B. Sweeney. There's a lot of like B-level those guys from that era. And this was, I think, the first time people really gave notice to Harry Connick Jr. as an actor, because he's pretty good in it. Oh, Troll 2. Yeah, well, that's a B classic. If you've never seen Troll 2, you should, but you should also really watch the documentary about Troll 2, about it's like the greatest worst movie ever or something like that, and it really gets into it. Troll 2 is really, really funny, but the documentary is possibly even better. Let's see. On October 13th, there's a movie called Judgment. I have no idea what that is. Blythe Danner. Oh, it was a TV movie. No one stands beyond the reach of the law, not even the church. Oh, I don't want to watch that. Night of the Living Dead, the Tom Savini one. This is great. This is really good. It's a remake of Romero's film, and it's by Savini, and it's a good remake. This is a good one. Romero rewrote the screenplay. Yeah. I like this. Tony Todd was in it. Yeah. I've seen this remake recently. It's really well done. Quigley Down Under with Tom Selleck. Reversal of Fortune with Glenn Close and Jeremy Irons. That's a chiller. And then the 26th, Graveyard Shift, directed by Ralph Singleton. Oh yeah, this is the Stephen King short story stuff. Yeah. Soul Taker. So there's a bunch of movies I've really not, but I mean, you got a decent month, man. You've got Miller's Crossing, The Night of the Living Dead is good. Reversal of Fortune really actually is quite good. So a decent month. Nothing like Goodfellas level, but Miller's Crossing, oh boy. And Troll 2.
You were saying?
I was, and now.
Now, mass is ready.
He is, Destro. That he is. What was I just thinking? Oh, hold on one second. Okay, had to do a quick little look up because we've got a new artist hitting the mix this week. So I wanted to make sure I had some details for you guys. It's a G.I. Joe number 109. It's a cover, man. It's a cover. So it's a Lee Weeks cover. Let's get that out the way. There's lots of fog on the ground, so we're not dealing with a lot of it gives a nice hazy look to it, which works well for it. It's got Snake Eyes front and center, which doesn't make any sense to me. And I wonder I wonder what that is. I wonder if some parts of the story changed, because it's the cover is absolutely specific to the content of the story. You've got a lot of text on it. So you've got body count 7 and climbing. I don't think that should have been on this issue. That body count should have been on the second issue, on the next issue on 110. I do feel like that's too much. I can't imagine, especially reading what we did in the letter columns a couple issues ago. I can't imagine that Larry was happy with seeing that body count 7 and climbing on the top of this picture. I don't think it should be on there. I think it should be on the second one, but or if you want to tease it, something else. But that's a huge spoiler. Casualties of War, I think works. I think that's fine to have at the bottom. Based on the art, now who knows if they told Lee to leave the bottom a little more open. Are they filling that space because there wasn't a lot of detail done at the bottom of the illustration? And then, hey, this is kind of blank, so let's put Casualties of War. Or did they say, don't do a lot of foot detail in that range because we're going to put the words over it? I don't know. I love the Cobra Commander that he is. He's obviously like not a literal projection, but like he's a hovering menace, over the whole scenario that we're watching, and that he pops over the logo. I think that layering effect works really well with it. Snake Eyes. Again, he's not in the book. They talk about him, but he's not actually in the book, which is weird why he's on there. No, I know it's because he's the most popular Joe, so he's going to sell more books. I don't need to hear that. But I'm wondering if something got lost in the meaning. What I would have liked to see, I guess, since the guys being depicted, and it's accurate as to who's, and now it's not exactly, not everyone depicted in the background dies, but 7 of them do. Spoiler alert. I wish Snake Eyes was not covered in that fog then, is I guess where I'm going at. Where you get to Snake Eyes' feet, and it gets very imagey where no one was drawing feet at the time, which I know Lee Weeks can draw feet. I wish Snake Eyes wasn't standing in the fog, that the fog was, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's more literal. The guys are more in the fog, the mists of time, the mists of death, so to speak, with this looming Cobra Commander over top. I guess these are the questions I'm asking someone, if they present this, I'm like, it's great, but let's look at the kind of let's break it down and say, what are we representing in this picture? And yeah, that's what I would want. I feel like I'd want Snake Eyes to be a little more real. Those guys in the mists of death, and then I think Cobra Commander works perfect. Having said that, I think it totally works, but those are my critiques on the overall production of this. So these are questions actually that I would pose to the editorial staff.
Yo, Joe!
Which we can see, sorry to blow out the mic there, is Larry Hama on script, John Statman, welcome John Statman to the G.I. Joe world on pencils, Tim DeZan on inks, Randy Emberlin also doing a couple pages of inks, good old Randy Emberlin, Rick Parker on letters, Bobby Chase is editor, so we would ask Bobby Chase that question, and Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. So I mentioned John Statman, that's who I had to look up. I know I've seen his stuff before. He did some work on Avengers Unplugged, which I've totally read. He worked on Evangeline and Grimjack over at First Comics. He worked on Prime and The Solution over at Malibu. But I think what most of us know his work from this era is he did the TSR Marvel Superheroes role-playing supplements. He did a lot of the artwork for those. And for like the adventure game books and stuff. And he did some Dungeons and Dragons artwork, things like that. He's really talented. I think it works really well. I'm wondering why they, and actually I meant to do this before, so I'm going to do this on air. This will be real quick. I'm going to look quick peek to next issue and see if John draws the next issue too. No, next issue is Ron Garney. So I'm curious as to why the change. Like, were they trying out new guys? Were they, was it a fill-in kind of a thing? Did they, run up against it with Mark Bright, or were they looking to just fill in the, get a new penciler in place? I think Statman does really nice work with this. It just, it's an important issue. So you would, it's the kind of thing where, like, if, I would I'd want part of my regular team knowing that this is the issue, that Larry's going to murder everybody. Anyway, and that is by no means a critique, because I think the whole book looks pretty good. But as we have seen, I'll just throw this out there. It usually does take a book like this. It usually does take a penciler a few issues to find a feel for these characters, for the Joes, to get their looks down right. Both accuracy in actual costuming, which I don't really see a major problem with this, but also facial expressions, and just because G.I. Joe is a bit different than your average comic book. It's a little more grounded in realism. So you want to find that line. So it's an interesting. I did not recall that. That Mark Bright didn't draw. I actually didn't recall at all who drew this. So I thought that was an interesting change. Death in the Desert. In the desert of Trucial Abysma, somewhere in the Middle East, we've got Tomax and Zaymot going hog on Duke, just beating him half to death with their fists. And as the guys say, they're doing the downtown stomp all over Duke's head. It's a nice splash page showing, got a bunch of Vipers with their rifles trained on captive Joes. There's smoking machines in the distance. And, like I said, Duke is he's just getting beaten up, really.
Yo, Joe!
Cross Country is there. And he's making the argument that they can't stand for this, that they have to bum rush him basically. And Lieutenant Falcon is saying, I'm still in command here cross country. I say we hang tough and bide our time. They're just looking for an excuse to open up on us. It's fun. Most of this book plays, let's get brass tacks with it. These guys have all had so many adventures where no one has died, right? Both, in the animated universe and certainly in the comic book. So even both sides here, Tomax, the twins and the Joes, all have this weird understanding of, let's just play this out. Like, nobody lose their head and we'll all get out of this alive. And it's a fine line when you are trying to portray something real, which would be the murder of those guys. And it's a real fine line to tread. And I think Larry does a wonderful job with it in this issue of not turning it up to grisly right away, but giving the story the right room to breathe, where it escalates from, are you sure, to, yeah, all these Joes are going to die. So they throw Duke in with the guys, and cross country, he gets real lippy with them, and a Viper comes over and cracks him on the head.
Yo, Joe!
One of the twins, I think it's Tilmax, is complaining, his fists are getting sore while he's kicking Duke in the face still. And this is interesting. They have, Statman draws Zaymot lighting up a cigarette. And, I don't remember them being heavy smokers. It's an interesting, and art wise, it's an acting choice. You want to draw your characters doing something interesting. And he just decided to draw him lighting up a cigarette, which is okay, sure. Like, and I'm not saying that from any, like any kind of puritanical, they shouldn't be smoking perspective at all, not in the least. I just don't remember seeing these guys smoking. I think having your comic book characters smoke a cigar or a cigarette or whatever, I think it's an artistic tell to the viewer. It absolutely tells something about that character. And I think when it's used properly, I always dig it. And because if it's a good guy and he's smoking, then you just know he has an edge. And if it's a bad guy he's smoking, then you can imagine he's just some kind of degenerate chain smoker. You know what I mean? Like, he's just... So it's interesting that in the middle of all this, we learn that one of the twins smokes, and I imagine they both do. So Duke's in really bad shape, and Heavy Metal and Crankcase come over to help him out. And they, Duke, but we learn that Duke's kind of faking it a little bit because they're hoping to let their guard down around him, and they throw the Joes specifically into a ravine. And Zaymot is calling in to the consulate building. He's trying to reach Cobra Commander. Now, when last we left Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, last issue, was threatening him with a knife to his throat, and Stalker and Stormstrider was like, he's saying, you get out of town, otherwise he's going to kill you. So that they're still at the consulate is really shocking to me. We didn't see Snake Eyes leave, but Snake Eyes must have just said, okay, I'm going to leave now. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird... I don't know. It's a weird walk back from that great ending of last issue. Why would I feel like Snake Eyes would have stuck around until they got on a helicopter and flew away from the consulate. But now they're still at the consulate. They're warming up a helicopter, and yes, they're getting ready to leave. And they're talking about it, like they're saying that, that it's going to look bad if he flees. But, Cobra Commander is still frightened. It's the logistics of what's happening here are just odd to me.
Yo, Joe!
I would not have expected to see Cobra Commander still there. I feel like he would have, we should have seen him on the helicopter flying away from the consulate building. I feel like that would have been, would have had less questions. Anyway, a phone call can go a million ways. And we know that the game of telephone tag and phone and telephone itself can go wrong. You hear one thing on one end and someone misinterprets it on the other. And that is what we have a case of here. So Zaymot is asking Cigarette and all. He's saying that Joe's strike team just knocked out our terror drones. And we're going to pause for a second. We'll be right back. And we're back. Pardon me. I've talked about this before. There's a gardener that starts the same time I start recording every week. And it's always a race to get this in either before or after. And today I lost that race. I was trying to get finished before he started. And here we go. So, where was I? Basically, it's a game of telephone between Zaymot and Cobra Commander. And it plays out really well, you know. Walk you through it if you guys don't have the comic in front of you. Zaymot is saying, a strike team just knocked out our terror drones that were supposed to support our upcoming, quote, you know what. I think our plans can still go ahead without the drones, but now we're still stuck with these Joe prisoners. And Cobra Commander says, G.I. Joe prisoners, are you crazy? Get rid of them immediately. He says, what? Did I hear you right, Commander? Exactly what do you mean by that? Commander says, what else can I mean? Just do it. He hangs up the phone, bumbling idiots. Don't they know I can't afford to get Snake Eyes or the other Joes ticked off at me until after I get back to the safety of Cobra Island? And, they're like, well, what was that all about, Commander? And he just said, I just had to tell Tomax and Zaymot to let the Joe prisoners go. It galls me, but we have no choice. And cut back to Tomax and Zaymot, and they say, they just dumped a heavy one on us, brother. How do we weasel through this without having anything foul-smelling? So they think he said to kill them, and he really said to let them go. So they're really in a pickle.
Yo, Joe!
Of course, not as much of a pickle as the Joes find themselves in. Don't get me wrong. So we see Doc is there, and he's working on Duke. Lieutenant Falcon is identifying that Duke could have some internal injuries. Cross Country's there. And we learned that Cross Country managed to steal a knife. This will come in handy while he was messing with one of the Vipers, and the Viper kind of gave him a rifle butt to the face. Cross Country stole his combat knife. Now there's a nice insight. I like the way that Statman draws this. So we're getting close-ups on the guys in the trench, and we've previously seen that there's a lot of Cobra activity, but these close-ups are drawn inset into a half-page spread where we see just how much Cobra there is in True Silabisma. There is a lot of Cobra here. There's a lot of Hiss tanks, Hiss 2s, maggots, and the Fang copters. Like there's a lot of Cobras. Like the Joes really are in the middle of the Viper's nest. And Tomax and Zaymot are trying to get one of the Vipers to volunteer to kill the Joes, but they don't want to say kill. This is as much fun for us because it's having these characters that don't normally kill people having to say it. And also, I don't know if there was any code concerns or any concerns about, like premeditatingly talking about killing him. I have a feeling that's not an issue. Like in the comic, I think it's probably played up more for fun, but my brain's going is like, was this the kind of thing where they said, well, we can't really have them say kill. So then Larry went and had fun with it where they can't say it to the Vipers themselves. So they're dancing around it with the Vipers. It's one of those like real world affecting the way that they tell the stories. So, the twins pawn it off on the Vipers.
Yo, Joe!
Until one Viper specifically steps up, and it's the dreaded, legendary Saw Viper. And he says, I'll do your dirty work for you, and I won't even feel bad about it afterwards. And it's a nice like half panel spread, like a kind of like a who's who shot, like a official handbook of the G.I. Joe universe kind of shot of the Saw Viper. So full body, you see him in all his badness. And he says he's even going to do it, and they're going to see to a pay bonus. So they're going to give him 1 extra month's pay, and he demands 2. They agree, and they get in their hiss, and they drive off because they don't want to be a witness to this quote-unquote business. And the Saw Viper says to these 2 remaining regular Vipers that if they want in on this, he's not going to cut him a paycheck. And it's really it's a nice, they're striking a nice balance here.
Yo, Joe!
Between this deranged Saw Viper who's willingly going to murder these Joes and this level of unease that all these characters have, because it's a book that while they're shooting weapons at each other, they don't normally kill people in cold blood. It's a weird dichotomy, and I appreciate the way that they unfolded this story. So Thunder is down in the pit, and we hear that he hears that the Cobras are moving out, the vehicles are leaving, so the guards are gone. So they boost Doc up. Poor old Doc. He says, "Lift me up slowly, and I'll peek over the edge." He's being boosted by Thunder, and is it Crankcase boosting him? And as Doc's head lifts over the edge of the pit, he says, "I think our luck just ran out." And the Saw Viper literally puts rounds right in Doc's head. Merry Christmas. There's no other place he could have shot Doc but right in the face. And Doc takes a tumble. They immediately say Doc is dead, so I'm assuming that's a face shot. And the Saw Viper says, "Just like the rest of you are gonna be." Like, this is legit. This would have been legit shock. It was legit shock. I remember reading this. It was shocking. But this is also why, like, I hate that the cover says body count and rising, because this would have been absolutely shocking.
Yo, Joe!
And then there's this scene of just the Saw Viper spraying into all the Joes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other Joes get hit, and that equals your body count of 7, the 6 plus Doc. So I like that they're represented differently than the other, because there's 4 other Joes that are down there in the pit that survived this initial burst. So like this is it's artistically a nice way to kind of split them out and really point out, it's Crazy Legs, Thunder. Well, no, because Lieutenant Falcon's a part of there, and I think he survives this. Yeah, so it's actually not all 7. It's not all 6 that do. Anyway, Crankcase is getting hit, and Saw Viper is he's pretty sadistic about it. So Falcon gets that knife that Cross Country stole and throws it directly into the Saw Viper's chest, stopping the shooting.
Yo, Joe!
Then the quick kick and Cross Country boost Falcon out of the pit, grabs the gun off of the stunned Saw Viper, and then he proceeds to get shot. Falcon does. And Quick Kick takes this Saw Viper's gun, and he starts mowing down Vipers. And he goes a little crazy, I think it's safe to say. He loses it a little bit. And Quick Kick's around a little more like Spirit here. He's got like Spirit's long hair. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. But, again, that's what I mean where you talk about new artists coming on. Sometimes they don't have a full grasp of which character is which. So I'm not used to seeing Quick Kick with this long hair. But he murders a Quick Kick kill count 2 at least.
Yo, Joe!
So this, we find out exactly who the body count is on this panel. So now there's no more Vipers around. The Saw Vipers, he's either actually still knocked out or he's just playing coy because now he's outnumbered. And they're screaming for Quick Kick to stop firing. And we learn that they killed Doc. And they also got Thunder, Crankcase, Heavy Metal. And as of now, that's all the dead right now. So we've got 4 dead: Doc, Thunder, Crankcase, and Heavy Metal. Again, referencing last episode, when Larry pulls out a bunch of randos from the past, it might not be a great idea. It might not mean good times for them in the future. So Breaker starts calling the pit, and he grabs a radio and he calls the pit. And the Joes are not going to leave the bodies behind. Of course, they're taking with them because they take care of their own.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, at the pit, Hawk and who is it? Lady J? Yeah, Hawk and Lady J and Dial Tone, they get the call and they hear, the Breaker gives them their present location, and he tells them that they're in possession of a Cobra vehicle. They've been, they're under attack, etc., and they need help immediately. And they've got KIA killed in action and wounded in action, and they need an extraction ASAP. Now, Tomek Zemat hear this, and they jam all the frequencies. So that's all the Joes get out of this. But when Tomek Zemat hear this, they send some tanks back to go back and double back and clean up things. So Hawk says, rouse rock and roll, clutch, and wild card. He wants the Defiant ready to launch in 10 minutes. So he knows the only way to get to that side of the world that quickly is to go to space.
Yo, Joe!
And so meanwhile, in Trucial Abysma, the Joes are on this the confiscated Cobra vehicle, and they start driving away. And we see that the Saw Viper is still alive. The knife that went to his chest was stopped by the Kevlar. But then he did have his nose busted by whichever Joe, I guess it would have been Falcon that attacked him. So now the his tank catches up to the Saw Viper, and he says, give me a ride and we'll find them and we'll track them down and we'll kill the rest of them.
Yo, Joe!
Now in Utah, we get a quick Defiant launch. This is a great use of the Defiant, there's only so many times we can quote, go to space and fight in space. But to say, hey, we've got the suborbital vehicle, and we can use this to get, to get anywhere on the planet pretty quickly, by going up into space and then falling down somewhere else in the world. I think it's a pretty good use of the Defiant. So that's what we're doing here. So they put together the launch in record time and countdown and who's in the, let's see, so they're talking to Lady J, and the passengers are Rock and Roll and Wildcard and who did we just say? Wildcard and Clutch. And we know Wildcard breaks everything, so that's always fun when you throw him on something as delicate as a space shuttle. He almost presses the eject button instead of the seatbelt button, So Wildcard's always fun to have.
Yo, Joe!
But the chase is on in Trucial Abysma. We get some copters chasing after the Joes. They're shooting at them. The Joes have limited ammo, and they're doing their best to, they're not exactly well suited, but they are able to take out a couple of those Fang choppers, copters, whatever you want to call it. And Breaker he's been shot by one of the Fangs, and so we know that he's not doing well.
Yo, Joe!
It's kind of like play-by-play here, like of you have to keep track of who's hit, who's not. The Fang choppers are, I think keep wanting to say chopters. The Fang choppers are exploding left and right. They're dying. There's a lot of, I feel like so I'm going to throw critique out there. This, while well rendered, the placement of where everything is and where all the guys are and the general like the map of this whole chase and battle is a little muddied. I think this is where someone like, if you had someone like Mark Bright who had drawn G.I. Joe before and who had drawn these types of scenes before, certainly around Wagner, the geography of this, it's maybe the word I'm looking for, the geography of this fight would have been a little more clear. Because we have some exciting panels here. And they're certainly, they're rendered well and they're fun. And within the panel, you can see what's going on. But to my eye, there's not a whole lot of geography of this scene, of where everyone's at, who's firing where, what's firing at what. It would help to declutter some of this just to make sure we understand, who's firing at what. Like at one point, the Saw Viper, the vehicle the Saw Viper's in is shooting in the sky, and I don't know what they would be shooting at because they're I guess if they're lobbing shots at them, but like we don't know how far the Joes are. Anyway, you know what I mean? It's a little confusing as to who's shooting at where. So And I think that's one of the things that comes with you doing a book like this. You get a feel for it after you do it for a few issues. And I don't mean that as a critique. I just mean that as a it's more of a experiential thing that you see with almost all these artists. First few times, even their style may be great, but you see that they learn how to tell these stories because there's like these real world geographical issues. If that makes any sense. If it doesn't, hey, I'm a podcaster. Should learn how to speak better.
Yo, Joe!
So now we're back in space, and the Defiant is about to launch the mobile battle bunker. So it's the Joe's mobile battle bunker, and they've got like a heat shield on it, and they're going to drop it, and it's going to fall through the atmosphere. And once it's clear from the atmosphere, there's a bunch of parachutes on it. They're going to blow, and then they're going to land safely, and they'll be where they want to be. But in the meantime, the guys need to fall through the atmosphere, and they are all scared out of their minds.
Yo, Joe!
And in the desert, so it's fun. Like that little side, even though they're going to rescue the Joes, but it's still played for comedy because there's no real peril there except for any of their own making. You know what I mean? So you can play that for a little comedy of like them being a little nervous about being in space, Wildcard almost hitting the eject button. And that helps break up this, the overall serious tenor of this book, because back in True Royal Bisma, things are not doing well. And the Joes are really, really under assault. And the Saw Viper really wants to earn his extra month's pay, that's for sure. Breaker's still working on the communication. They finally got out of range of the frequency jammer, and he's talking to the pit once again. And Dial-Tone is able to tell him that hold out, help is on the way.
Yo, Joe!
And here comes the help, which is the mobile battle bunker searing through the sky. And as they say, the worst part is just beginning. And see, this is where so I think this top image is supposed to be them drawn like they're getting shaken up like in a tin can, because we know there's only 3 of them on this battle bunker, right? So they're being shaken up but the way that this is illustrated and also colored, it's a kind of a mess. Like it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like there's all of a sudden the Joes were joined by like 6 other dudes, but it's really just the same Joes being drawn, like how when you draw the Flash using a Speed Force and you draw multiple images of the Flash. That's kind of what's happening in this picture, but it's not the best rendering of that. So that's a little hard to make out what's going on, and I don't think the coloring of it is helping the job there. In the desert, the tank that the Joes are on just exploded. They were on the Rage, by the way, and Lieutenant Falcon got thrown clear of the blast.
Yo, Joe!
And we learned that Falcon says we got to get to the others, Breaker and Quick Kick, and we learned that the quote, "There ain't no others, sir. There's just you and me and Duke, and the others are all dead." So they got killed in the explosion of the Rage. That's crazy. With only 3 standing. And the Saw Viper is going to take care of that, too.
Yo, Joe!
So while that's happening, the battle bunker is falling to Earth. And they trust Wildcard to actually hit the button for the parachutes, which is a terrible idea. Even though he does hit the right button and the chutes deploy properly. But karma-wise, the chutes break. And so the mobile battle platform is left hurtling to Earth. And they're going to die too. So next is Escalator to Armageddon. And boy,
Yo, Joe!
that is exciting. That is a body count. So hold on one second. So final death count, 7, as the cover said. We've got Doc, took it in the face. Heavy Metal Thunder, Crankcase. They all got shot up by the Saw Viper. And then Breaker, Crazy Legs, and Quick Kick, they died in the exploding rage. That's quite the death toll. Let's see here. For me, Crankcase was a fan favorite. I really like Crankcase because he drove the All-Striker. Breaker was my second Joe I ever had. So that was, he was one of the only Joes I had two of because I thought I lost him once. And so I got a second Breaker. But Breaker I was a big fan of Breaker. I like the Crazy Legs figure. Can't say he did much in the, in the actual book or anything, but I really always enjoyed the Crazy Legs figure. I thought it was a really nice figure. And I love Quick Kick more from the cartoon than the comic book. And the figure was great, but I loved Quick Kick on the cartoon. So this one really hit, man. Now we've also got a Storm Shadow dossier to round out this issue. We had last issue was Cobra Commander and Snake Eyes. In this issue, it's dossier recap of Storm Shadow's bibliography, or his life story. And I like the issues they highlight here. They highlighted issue 23, which is it's funny, that's actually wrong. It says 23, it's actually 21, and it's wrong because then the next entry in the bibliography does say 23 through 25. So it's actually G.I. Joe 21 is his first appearance in the silent issue. 23 to 25 is Storm Shadow gets captured by the Joes. 26 and 27 is the origin of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and they fight. 33 is the assassination attempt on Cobra Commander. 42 is Storm Shadow saves Billy. 45, Storms and Snakes, they find out who killed the Hardmaster. 46 through 49 is the assault on Cobra Island and the, quote, death of Storm Shadow. 49 and 50 is his revival. 52, he goes to the cabin to kind of recenter himself after dying. 66 is Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Billy Jinx, and the Blind Master raid Barovia to rescue Stalker, Quick Kick, rest in peace, and Snowjob. 67, some ninja philosophy stuff. 84 rather, is the origin of Zartan. 85 is another silent issue. This is the one where they attack him in San Francisco. 90 to 91, he battles the remnants of the Urashikage clan in the High Sierras, and the Blind Master dies. 94 to 96 is the big Snake Eyes trilogy. 103 to 105, Storm Shadow turns Snake Eyes into a killing machine. And don't forget, Yearbook 3, Storm Shadow teams up with Scarlet to rescue Snake Eyes from the Cobra Consulate building. Covered all of these on Joe Illustrated. We also have some letters this month from Vijay Mohan and Tom Guido Flory out of Conestoga Triangle at Copley, Ohio. They're complaining about the lack of realism, guys. How's this? Is this real enough for you? Jeff Lauer out of Towson, Maryland. Becky Cooer out of Hamilton, Illinois. Ryan Doomperth out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've spent a lot of time in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Respect and shout out to Fort Wayne. I got family out there. And so next month, the death toll stands at 7. Can things possibly get worse for the Joes? What? And we're getting a Lady J dossier. That's exciting. This week's dossier was drawn by Javier Saltares, who was at the time doing Ghost Rider. Next month, we get a Michael Golden Lady J. So that's it. That's the big Christmas episode. Welcome, Grim Reaper, to G.I. Joe. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed going down this dark corner of memory lane. And we're going to see what happens. I don't remember if there's more death toll next issue, but we're going to find out for, I guess it'd be our New Year's episode. We're ending the year with just a delightful bang. So love you guys. Love the show. Love the support of all my listeners and friends. And have everyone have a very Merry Christmas. And we'll see you next week. Now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.